Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and today I'm going to do a tutorial on how to make this beautiful gatefold card, and it's a little different than the normal gatefold, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But this is going to feature the stamps and dies from the Painted Christmas suite. It's a beautiful suite, and I'll show you the components of it, but it is just a beautiful, if you like a country type Christmas pine cones, holly, that kind of thing, you'll love this suite. So I wanted to feature that with this gatefold. And let me show you the cool thing about this gatefold. So it opens like a normal gatefold, but then on the inside, you have like a traditional card. So it closes like that and like that. Just a different spin on a gatefold card. So let's talk about the suite, and then we'll talk about how to make the card. So the suite comes with 2 stamp sets and 2 die sets. So the first stamp set is Christmas Season, and it's a polymer set. That means that it's the clear plastic, and you get pine cones, 2-step pine cones, where you could stamp the background in one color, I would think a lighter color, and then the top layer would be in a darker color, and you can make your own pine cones. There's different types of leaves, berries. So that's Christmas Season. The other stamp set is Christmas to Remember, and it's all greetings, and this is a cling set in that it's the red rubber. So that's that. And then the 2 die sets. The first one is called, let me get the cheat sheet so I can make sure to tell you the right name. It's called Christmas Pine Cone Dies. And you'll see that you have these 2 beautiful background dies, and that's what we're going to be using today. You've got some, you can do some little pine cones and a medium-sized pine cone. We're going to use these 2. One is like the background, and one is the detail to go on top, and we're using those today, and I'll give you some little tips and secrets with that in just a moment. The other die set is the season label dies, and we're going to be using those as well. We're going to be using this large and then this smaller label, and that's going to go on the front of the card. Then also with this set, and I've already been into my pack of paper, so it's not a full pack, but you get this beautiful pack of 12 by 12 pine cone holly leaf paper, and it's just beautiful. It's double-sided. So if you like the red and green, there's plenty of options for that. And then there's some that are more like a woodsy. So whatever look you're going for, you could definitely do some really cool stuff for Christmas with this pack of paper. Then you also get this red ribbon with the gold trim. And I don't know if that's showing up, but it's a beautiful ribbon. And then you also get these gold, they're like almost like a fabric, these gold leaves. So you also get those. And we won't be using these today, but it comes in the suite if you order the suite. You can order any of these individually, but you definitely do save a little money if you buy the suite together, plus you get some really cool stuff. So definitely check out that suite. It is in the mini catalog that runs through December, and it's on page 16 and 17. And it will show you all of the papers. It'll show you everything that comes with it, and it'll even give you a clue as to what colors would go good with it. So definitely check that out. If you don't know, I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up, so you can order any of these products from me at my online store, karensmith.stampinup.net, and I would love to have you as a customer, and go check out that and order what you need. So let's get right into the card. So you're going to need a piece of, I used the garden green, and this is 5.5 by 4 1/4. Then I have a piece of seafoam green that is 8 by 5 1/4, and I've scored it in the middle at 4. Then I have a piece of the Designer Series paper that is 3 3/4 by 5. And as I mentioned, I cut one of the larger labels out of the Garden Green and one of the smaller ones out of the Seafoam Green. Then I have 2 pieces of vellum, and these are 5 1/4, and I just did by 3, and we're going to do some scoring with this. So 5 1/4 by 3 will get you what you need. And then I've already die cut these, but I wanted to talk a little bit about these and show you these. These are those dies that I showed you. This is the more of the background one that I did in the Seafoam Green. And this is the more detailed one that I did out of the Garden Green. And these are meant to layer together on top of here. Now, you know, if you're a perfectionist, you can work with it until you get it exactly layered up. I think because of the pattern, if it's not exact, it really, you know, won't matter too much. But I will tell you, this is an extremely delicate die set. And so what I have found, just a little bit of tricks to help you. When you, and every machine's going to be a little bit different, but what I like to do with these really detailed dies, when I put them on my sandwich, when I'm making my sandwich, I don't run it straight like that. I kind of tilt it, and I'm just going to use this for an example. I'm not really going to run it through, but I would cut this to fit on the sandwich. And I put the die down and then the cardstock on top of it and run it through. Normally we would do like this, but these delicate ones, normally we run them through with the die on top. But with these delicate ones, I run them through the reverse and I tilt it. Instead of going straight on, I tilt it a little bit. And I seem to get a better cut. Now, after you die cut these, the paper, the cardstock will be stuck inside the die. And just take your time. I turn it over to the back side and I use my take your pick tool, and I just start going in the little holes to loosen everything up. You definitely, this is something that you want to take your time with. If you try to go fast through this, you might end up ripping it and having a disaster. So I would definitely recommend taking your time and try the little tricks that I showed you. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And we are going to start with this because we want to do our gluing and give this time to dry while we're working on some of the other stuff. So let me I'm going to bring in my silicone mat because I'm going to be doing a lot of glue stuff that could get out all over everything. I'm going to show you how I did it. You could definitely run this darker green through with adhesive on the back and just stick it down that way. But the problem with that is once you stick it down, it's stuck. I have a little piece that I need to get popped out. So I'm just going to sometimes if you poke it back the other way, it'll help get it out. Okay, so there. So there are my 2 pieces. And you could run this through with the double-sided adhesive. And then it would be ready to stick on. I don't prefer doing it that way just because the liquid glue gives me a little more time to manipulate and to move. But to sit and try to put a bunch of glue on the back of that, if you've not tried it, believe me, it's very time consuming. So I use my silicone mat, and I'm just gonna, this is what works for me. Something else, you can see where I've already done some, and when this dries, you'll be able to just peel it right off of this silicone mat. So definitely don't worry about that. That's the beauty of the silicone mat. And I'm not going to take the time to peel it all off, but I just want to show you how easy this. And then I just wash it with a little bit of soap and water and it's ready to go again. I keep a sponge in a little Tupperware, not Tupperware, but a little container with a lid. And I have just a little clip on it. And this is my glue sponge. And by keeping it sealed, it keeps it from hardening so that I can use it over and over and over. Now, what I like to do is I like to have these set the way they're going to go, like line them up before I start putting the glue on so that I can just turn it over and put it right on and not have to worry about, do I have them the right way? So I know that this has to go on here like this. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the dark green one over. That's the one I want to glue. And I'm going to bring in my liquid glue. And I'm just going to put a glob of glue right down on my silicone mat. And then I'm going to come in with my sponge. And that's why I have this other silicone underneath. I'm just going to get glue on my sponge. And then I'm just going to dab up and down. And that gets the glue all on my piece. And I don't want to move this around because then I'll get glue on the front of it. So I'm just holding it down. And these are so delicate. If you try to put glue on every piece of that, it'd just take forever and it'd be a nightmare. And some of it would be dry before the rest of it is done. And I want to show you a little trick if you do get glue on the front side. Okay, so I think I've got this good. And these two have went together, so I just want to separate them a little bit. Now I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to move this a little bit, bring this over. And I just want to, I'm going to try to place the parts that have the solid underneath it first, get those lined up first. And set those down. And then you can move these a little bit. I didn't care if they were directly on and if they were a little offset. I think that plays into the character of the leaves. So I'm just going to move these a little bit where I want them and press them down. Just like that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put that in there and seal that up so that it doesn't dry out. And I'm going to move this glue stuff out of the way, but I want to show you a little secret because sometimes doing that, you will get glue on the front of that green piece. So it'll be sticky to the touch. But if you do much card making, I'm sure you have an embossing buddy. And we usually use this to put on our cardstock so our embossing powder doesn't stick where we don't want it to, but it also de-sticks glue. So if you just run this over top, it will get rid of the sticky that is in places that you don't want it. So I'm just going to, and I'm doing this carefully because I don't want to rip anything that's down, but I just want to make sure that there's no sticky. And when I'm done, I'm just going to run my fingers over it and make sure I don't have any sticky. Okay. And I don't feel anything that's sticky. Maybe just a little. Sometimes it's hard to tell if it's on the piece or on your fingers. But that feels pretty good. I don't feel anything sticky. So just use your embossing buddy for that. Now I'm gonna let that set for a few minutes because I want that glue to have a little bit of time to set. And I'm gonna bring in my scoring tool and my vellum. And I wanna score at 2 inches, which is gonna help us. And you wanna use, if you have the Stampin' Up score, you wanna use the gray one, the lighter one. And I'm just going to score at 2 inches. On both pieces. going to move that out of the way. And let's go ahead and do some stamping. We're going to need to stamp on this little seafoam and on the card base seafoam. So we're going to be stamping both of those. Let's start with this little label. And I'm going to be using the black memento. And I'm going to be stamping Magic is in the Air. And if you're, even if you're a seasoned stamper, what I like to do is I like to keep a piece of scrap paper nearby. And sometimes especially with new stamps that I haven't used a whole lot, I want to make sure that the impression's clear. I want to make sure that I know how to put it on straight, all those kinds of things. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll ink it up, and then I'll just, on a piece of practice, and I want to make sure this is in the camera, I will just practice on a little piece of scrap paper just to make sure, yeah, my stamp's looking good. And you can see that's a little bit crooked. So sometimes you get the sticker on the rubber a little off. So I'm just trying to see how I need to put it to line it up. And that was much better. Okay, so now I'm ready for my real piece. And I'm just going to stamp it down there. And this is just in the black memento. And then I want to come in, and on the inside of the piece that we're going to be putting on the card base piece, I want to stamp this, "May this be a Christmas to remember and cherish." And so I'm going to ink that up. And because these are rubber stamps, I don't need anything underneath. They're the cling stamps. And I'm just going to try to center this. I'm just trying to put a little bit of gentle pressure down. Okay, so that's got that. And then I'm done with the black memento. And for this next part, the stamping is done with polymer, so I want to put a piece of foam underneath. And I'm going to start with the evergreen green. Now let's use garden green, since our card trims are garden green. Let's use the garden green. And I'm going to use this double leaf. And I'm just going to ink this up. Make sure to get it in the camera so you can see. Just going to ink it up. And I just want to put this down in this lower corner. Just like that. And then I'm going to use the real red. I want to add some berries to it. So I'm using this splatter of berries, and I'm just going to stamp this in between those leaves. And that's just to give it a little design, little decoration, just like that. So we've got that done. And I just put my fingers in the ink pad. So I'm going to make sure to get that off. If I try to go ahead with that, I'm going to end up with ink all over my card in places I do not want it. So we can move that out of the way. We got all that done. So let's start putting the card together. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my designer series paper on the front of the card base, the seafoam green base. So I'm just using some Stampin' Seal. Just like that. I'm just going to line this up. Just like that. fold that. I'm going to come in with my bone folder. Just give it a nice crisp fold. So we're done with that piece. And then now is when we have to do some work with our piece that we glued together. So I'm going to bring in a cutting mat. You could do this on your trimmer, but let me tell you, because of the glue, I was worried that I would get glue on my trimmer, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to hand cut this. So I'm going to come in with a ruler. Let me find my ruler. So, and I know that I want each piece to be 2 inches wide, and that makes it about in the middle. So I'm just going to come in and I want to mark at 2 inches. And then I'm going to do the same thing towards the bottom. And I want to try to line this up so that I know I'm getting it straight. And I think it's going to be about right about there. And then I'm going to line the ruler up on those marks. Just like that. And then I'm going to come in with my just making sure I got it where I want it. Then I'm going to come in with my craft knife. Trying to make sure that looks even. I think I need to go just a little bit more this way. I think that looks better. Okay. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this with my craft knife. So I am just going to cut down through the cardstock, and I'm going to make a couple passes through it because again you have 2 layers, and I'm just going gently because if you try to pull it too hard, too fast, it's all going to crinkle and you're going to have a mess. So I'm just going to keep running this down through there, and I'm trying to go slow and gentle so I don't mess anything up. Just checking to see. And now I can see the line without the ruler. And I'm just going back over this. This is a little tedious. It takes a little time, but it will be worth it in the end. So I'm just going to take a little time with this and cut it through. And we may have let it set long enough where I could do it on the trimmer. I just didn't want to take the chance of getting my trimmer all glued up. And you can always trim, like if there's part of the edge that's a little bit like has burrs on it, you can always trim that. So you can take your scissors to it. So I think we should be in pretty good shape. Got one spot there in the middle that I need to go back and go over. Okay, so I'm going to trim off this little piece here. Okay. Now let me bring in our pieces of vellum. So what's going to happen, the larger section, you want to put the thin side, the thin part, you have your score line. So you have one side that's 1 inch and one that's 2 inches. The 1 inch side you want to be on your outside. And we're going to be putting these pieces along the edge to make our gatefold. Just like that. And then we're going to be gluing this one over here. Now these are a little easier to glue because you do have some solid on the back. So just like that. And so then they go back together like that, okay? So I'm gonna turn this over and I'm just going to put some, because it's more solid, I feel like I have more control and it won't take as long. So I'm just going to use the glue without the sponge. But I would say make sure you get right along the edge that's going to be where your gatefold card comes together. You want to make sure to get dots of glue there to hold that down. So I'm just running some dots of glue. All along this. And this really goes pretty fast. You can just dot away. Keep putting dots on there. So that I can glue it down. This is one of the more time consuming. Usually I try to do cards that are really quick and easy. But I thought the uniqueness of this gatefold and the beauty of this set made it worth taking a little more time and doing something that's a little more detailed. So, okay, I've got glue all over that. So I'm going to just flip it over and I want to put the, want to line it up on the edge. And I'm kind of looking at my top and bottom to make sure. And I can go back and trim with scissors if I need to. And I think that looks good right there. So I'm going to lay it down and press it down. I'm just going to set this one over for a minute and I'm going to do the same process. Now this other side is just a little more fragile, just the way the pattern is. So keep that in mind when you're working with it. It's just a little more fragile. Just because of the way it ends up, where the midpoint is and where you end up cutting, it is just a little fragile. So just take your time when you're working with it and it'll work out. Again, just doing some drops of glue. As you can see, I'm not taking a whole lot of time with this. Worried about placement. As long as I get glue along that edge that's going to be on the edge of the vellum, that's my main place that I'm taking care. But I'm not really, you know, I don't have to have it on every little piece of leaf because it's going to hold it down. Okay, looks pretty good. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to flip this over. And I'm going to put it along that edge. Again, this one you have to be a little more careful with. It's just a little more fragile. I'm just pressing it along. I'm going to press that down. And then I have a pair of scissors that I use only with sticky stuff, so that if I get glue on it, I really don't care. And I'm just going to come and see if there's any right along where the gatefold is going to be that I need to trim off. Just some little bird pieces that need trimming. And I'm just going to trim those. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just because of the way you're cutting it in two, you just could have some pieces that you just need to cut off. Just like that. Make sure everything's pressed down. Okay, and I'm going to move our cutting mat out of the way once we're done with it. And we're ready to start putting this all together. So the first thing you want to do is attach your vellum to the back of your seafoam green piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reinforce this fold. I want to make sure that that fold is good and creased. I'm going to do that to both of them. So where we scored it, I'm just folding that over and just making sure that crease is good. Now, because this isn't going to be seen, I'm just going to use the Stampin' Seal. And I'm just going to put some Stampin' Seal down on the 1-inch side. And I'm just going to, this is how we're going to do our gatefold. I'm just going to lay this card base in that fold and press it down. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this other side. I'm just adding my Stampin' Seal. And this one needs to go this way. Again, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to lay the seafoam green piece right in that fold. Just trying to line up the top and bottom. And I'm going to press that down. So then I'm just going to turn it over and I'm just going to go along. And there is the basis for our gatefold. And I'm just going to turn this over on the back side. And then I just take my bone folder and just go over it to kind of help everything lay a little flatter. Okay? And then we're just going to use our Stampin' Seal along the back. And this goes on our piece of garden green. So we're just going to lay this down, just like that. Okay. And then we're ready to layer our sentiment. Again, I'm just going to put a little Stampin' Seal on the back of this. I didn't use any dimensionals because I thought with that detailed part on the front, we didn't need any more dimension. So I'm just using Stampin' Seal. I'm just going to layer this on here. Now you only want to put adhesive on one side so you don't close your gatefold card. So I'm just going to run a little down like that. And then I'm just going to figure out where I want it. And I'm going to press this down. There, it opens like that. Oh no! So I think I can pull this up pretty easy. It's a bad place to do that. Okay, so I need to put it this way. Luckily, I caught that before I pressed it down too much. Okay, then it opens like that and like that. So, there we've got it. Okay, then the last thing I did for my finishing touch is I came in with a little bit of Wink of Stella. And on this garden green, I just kind of went and just kind of scribbled some Wink of Stella on the garden green. And it's pretty easy to do since it's already raised above the seafoam green. It's really easy to get it just on the garden green. And I just wanted to give a little glitter and shine, kind of like, you know, icicles on the leaves. So I just real quickly came and scribbled along there. And like I said, I didn't spend a whole lot of time with this. I just did it really fast, really quickly, just kind of scribbled on the garden green. Just like that. Just to give it a little bit of character. Okay, a little bit here. And then I used the holiday rhinestones. And so I just came in with those. And I don't want to use my knife. I'm going to use my take your pick tool. And I just put 3 of those underneath the greeting on the front. And the way I do it when I'm working on something like this where I want to put them underneath like that, I start in the middle. I put my 1 in the middle. And then I put 1 on either side. It helps me to get the spacing more even by putting my 1 in the middle first. So then I'm going to come in with my 3rd one. Kind of even those up a little bit. And there you have it. You have a little bit of glistening, and I don't know if the camera's picking up the glistening from the Wink of Stella, but it just gives it a nice added touch. So then you open it like this, and then you have your card on the inside as well. And you can sign it there. If you need extra room, you could always put a white piece on the back or sign it on the back too. But I think there's plenty of room there. You've got all this. But by doing it that way, it's a gatefold, but it's got an extra twist. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you'll give it a try. Take a look at your stamps. You wouldn't even have to use this intricate of a die. You could cut out some of the die pine cones, just cut out several of them and glue them on the front there. You could do that as well if you didn't want to use the really intricate die set. So here's the one that I'd made ahead of time. And here's the one we made today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, hit the little notification bell, and you'll be notified every time I do a new video. And I hope to craft with you again soon.